Yeah, it's been a slow boil, and we did the show with Ray, which I had a lot of fun with. We were talking about the presidents. FDR and the New Deal kind of spawned Social Security, but the welfare programs, that slowly, and that was a progressive left stuff. They love FDR. That started the replacement of a black, if you're looking at traditional black father in the home providing for the family, and it's been nothing but a disaster for black America. It's a provable disastrous policy for black Americans and anyone. It's not just black people on welfare. But why does nobody go after that as racist? The same ideology that's going after everything else. You can look at the welfare state and the need for reform and say, well, let's change this because it ain't working. But no, they don't do that because they're controlled by the government.
Yep. Thomas Swalwell and Larry Elder again also say those exact same things, and they get dismissed, right? I to your point, right? What is it that they call Larry Elder?
They call him the black face of white supremacy. Think about that.
Yeah, very similar to how they refer to the lieutenant governor of Virginia as white supremacy through ventriloquism.
Yep, it was the exact same thing. I did a video on that too because I was heated about it. And that's Winsome Sears you're referring to. Oh, she's great.
Love her.
My parents are Jamaican, and I believe both of hers are Jamaican too. So I kind of, but regardless of that, I think she's a star, a rising star. And what it reminds me of is, I used to think that the Democrat Party changed throughout the years because we know the party of slavery was the Democrat Party, Democrats in the South. And what they sell you is that the Democrat Party has changed. No. It's the same party. It's the same party of slavery. They've just changed their approach. Very smart, very brilliant. So they have what was called the talented 10th. They have certain people, they rise up with black skin to say certain things like Nicole Hannah-Jones, Ibram X. Kendi, and they guide people to stay on the plantation. And if you leave the plantation, then you are ostracized. That's basically what they're doing with Winsome Sears, Larry Elder, we don't want any young people to look at Candace Owens and even think about listening to
Yep, absolutely right. As a matter of fact, Prager University has a video, and there's a professor, I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but she talks about this, and she talks about how they made the switch in your eyes, but not in reality. I'll share that link with you afterwards. Yeah. But let me ask you a question. This is something that you alluded to in the Saved by the Bell clip that we saw. You said there was a tone of anti-masculinity within that, and we've heard the term toxic masculinity. Why is that happening? How did our society? Two things: are men being feminized in this day and age, and how did we get to this point?
I think it's without question. I didn't realize this until a couple years ago, and there's a Judge Joe Brown has talked about this, and when he was talking about it, I was like, I don't know yet. And then he kind of red-pilled me on it. You go ahead and take a look at a lot of the different celebrities, and when they do magazine shoots and all kinds of stuff, like Kid Cudi and all these different people, that they have to be feminized. ASAP, Rocky, they all get feminized. You do not see, go on any mainstream media outlet. You do not see, especially with any type of skin color, and that teacher in the Saved by Bell clip was Hispanic, of some type of Hispanic,
Spanish,
right?
It sounded like he was from Spain because of his lisp. There's certain areas in Spain that they talk with that lisp. It's part of their accent.
So why couldn't he? I'm absolutely fine with representing all different types of people, but why couldn't he have been a little bit more forceful, a little bit more strong? The term toxic masculinity skyrocketed after Trump, and famously, the Access Hollywood tapes came out, and at the time I was like, it's over. I'm like, Trump's done. And before that, I was like, I think Trump's going to win. And after the tape came out, I was like, he's done. And it didn't end him, because there's something about it. And if you want to call something toxic masculinity, it's what he said on the Hollywood tape. That's what toxic, but that's just, it was this like locker room talk. Not that it's good, but I think what happened is, that I didn't know at the time, is people were tired of this overcorrection. And that's why they said, I don't care if Trump said something that I wouldn't want my sons to say, or I wouldn't encourage them to say on that tape. So it was a rebuke against this wokeism that had started when he rose up. And now it, to me, I'm gonna let me get your opinion on this. If you wanted to control a population, if you want to take over a population, you're not going to do it with kinetic war. Like, say, for example, hypothetically, China wants to become the rising power and take over the United States. You're not going to do it with soldiers and tanks. That makes no sense. It's inefficient. It's expensive. You're not going to change anybody's mind. What you would do is kind of soften their men. That's the number one thing you would do, is soften their men, and you can bring in ideology. You can, when you look at these children with the drag shows, you always look at, where are the men? And the men who are there, to me, have been feminized. And just to generally speaking. So I don't know if that's a fact or not, but we are in a vulnerable state if we don't say it's okay to be feminine, it's okay to be masculine as well.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and we did a segment on how the military is having trouble filling their the people that are trying to join the military, and I'm sure there's a bunch of reasons for it, right? Obviously, maybe the jab shot might be one of those, right? And how they're so focused on all this woke ideology instead of actually preparing for what they need to prepare for. The fact that they wanted to get out anybody who supported Trump and stuff like that, right? I'm sure all those things have play a factor. But you're right. It seems like toxic masculinity is something that is frowned upon. It's looked down upon, and they just seem to want to feminize everything. And now let's look at the other side of the spectrum. Is there such a thing as toxic femininity?
Yeah, it goes both ways. I think it's being manipulated the same way. Like, if a woman doesn't want to be a career woman and wants to be a caregiver, someone who takes care of the home, that's fine. If somebody wants to be a professional woman, that's fine. Same with the toxic masculinity. I'm not saying you have to be a certain stereotype. Please don't get me wrong. Same with women. I'm just saying it's okay to be you. That's all I'm saying. And if you are not breaking any laws, then you can be you. That you can, however you are. Don't feel like, oh, I can't be someone who stays at home, even if you're a male. Don't think, oh, I can't be a stay-at-home dad. Of course you can be a stay-at-home dad. Is it what you want to do? Are you good at it? Does it fit you and your household? So break free of these stereotypes of this toxic masculinity and this toxic femininity. No, do you, be independent.
Yep, absolutely. So you went ahead and gave me, like, for instance, that TMZ audio clip, that locker room talk of Trump, and I agree, sounded bad. But to be honest with you, the reality is that's how the usual worldly typical guy talks in locker room. Because before I became a Christian, I was an atheist, and that was pretty much the conversations that I would have ever since I was in high school. Right. And so it was just the way that it is. Obviously, as a Christian, I don't talk like that anymore. I've never been in a group where men talk like that about women. We're taught very differently within our faith. Right. And so on the other side, the toxic femininity side, I think of someone like Amber Heard and everything that she went through with Johnny Depp and everything that she did to him and put him through and so on and so forth. And he won the case against her for, I don't know, I think it was defamation or whatever. But man, she put up one heck of a facade, if you will.
Yeah, and that I did not cover any of that. I only know a little bit of that case, and it's weird because that's a big thing. It became a huge cultural battle because of what you just said there. She showed that you can be toxic in a feminine way. And she showed that the Me Too got kind of attacked in that too. It's like, well, you believe a woman at any cost. You always believe a woman. No, but that you can't skip due process, no matter what. So what happened with Amber Heard represented the whole cultural battle, and it's still going on now. She was just trending the other day because Johnny Depp was at the VMAs, and Taylor Lorenz and all these writers, they're battling with independent creators who are kind of showing the lies. If it weren't for YouTube and independent creators, I probably would believe the Kyle Rittenhouse hoax. I'd probably believe the Amber Heard hoax. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's why what we're doing is so important, because we're covering the other side of the story. And to be quite frank, let's be real. Let's be normal for a second. Toxicity is in an individual. It's not in a group. It's not in a men. There's really honorable men like Dr. Ben Carson, whom I love, right? You've got Ron DeSantis is a pretty good example of that as well. And you've got people who are just toxic. Just look at the classic stereotypical jock bully, right? And that's where I guess all this nonsense comes from. But women can be just as toxic. I mean, how many times have we heard where women do things to men? They lie, especially when it comes to children, right? They'll say whatever they need to say to get more child support or to take a kid away from their dad and so on and so forth. I've gone through that myself with my first son. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you. When you guys come down here, I'll share my life story with you guys of the hell that this, my first son's mother put me through needlessly, because I was giving her $500 every month willingly, but she wanted more. She wanted more, and she took me to court, and then they took my kid away from me. I had him like 3-4 days a week, every week, depending on how my schedule, and they limited it to twice a week, twice every other weekend. That was it. That's all I could get them for.
Wow.
And So toxicity is anybody. But let me ask you this question, specifically when it comes to Hollywood. And the trend that we're seeing, does Hollywood seem to hate men?
Yes. Well, Hollywood is just going to do whatever I'm not even fully clear on who the interests are behind our politicians and this whole globalization movement, but Hollywood's just going to do whatever they want. So right now they will hate men, but you know where they won't hate men? They won't do that in China. They ain't having it. So China, for example, they're okay with it if our movie studios do it here. But when they release these movies in China, they said, edit it out. Or they say, we're not taking the movie. That's interesting, isn't it? That's interesting, even on TikTok. So you have TikTok, who's owned by ByteDance, which is a Chinese company. They will let some of the most toxic TikToks spread like wildfire in America, a Chinese company. But on their version of TikTok, ain't nowhere to be found. In America, they banned Truth Social from the Google Play Store app. Why didn't they ban TikTok? TikTok's clearly toxic. They're taking our data. We know this for sure. The FCC, I believe, even said it should be banned. Nope, they banned Truth Social. I don't know what. Convince me that we're not manipulated by China at this point. You can't do it.
Wait till you see the segment that we do on China. Just wait.
Yes. Yeah.
But here's the interesting part. I find it absurd and really from a business model, it doesn't make sense to me. What Hollywood seems to be doing, and when I say Hollywood, I mean everybody in Hollywood. Disney obviously owns Marvel and DC and so on and so forth. Like, your core base is especially when it comes to comic book movies, is men. It's boys. It's been like that since the 60s. Since comics first came into play, it's been boys that have been the huge production. Now we're getting more women into it because obviously dads have daughters and they like to share and so on and so forth. And you have, that group is growing, but you can't tell me that group outweighs the number of men that watch this stuff. And it seems like every movie now, it seems to be belittling and bashing men and making women better, stronger, smarter, like you said, at the expense of men.
Yeah, I think this goes back to ESG, because what's happening is not organic. And in an organic free market system, your company only survives when it meets the demand of its consumers, period. So if you're trying to present something there is no demand for, like this new Lord of the Rings and all this new Saved by the Bell, all that kind of. That's why you see shows closing up after a year and they're not lasting. What they're trying to do is feed into this system funded by BlackRock and these other private equity firms indirectly through ESG, which is basically just a social credit score system for companies. So if they have more representation, then they get more credit under this system and they get the investment. And I think at some point they're going to try and crack down on Eric July. Tim Pool just released a music video that, to me, the song is dope. People like it. And Daily Wire. These are private people doing small things, decentralized. And ESG is going to funnel that money to the big boys. If they don't, if I'm wrong, this wokeness is going to stop because it's not going to be financially supported.
I agree. I don't know how long it could last like this because the numbers do show a decline, and I can't imagine you telling your base, listen, you're really not good. The core, the people that made you, like for instance, Star Wars was built by as a large portion population. They were built by men. It was young boys. Girls don't really like sci-fi stuff. Again, now that transition has happened because fathers have shared this stuff with their daughters, and their daughters grew up on it now. But it's still, I don't see where it's like a 75-25 towards women. You know what I'm saying? So why? See, this is what I'm talking about, and this is what you talked about with the cultural infusion. Is that, dude, we had female representation and stuff like that back in the day, and it was just so natural. It wasn't at the expense of men. We had strong women like Sigourney Weaver and Aliens comes to mind, right? At no point was there ever any male bashing that happened in that movie. It was a straight movie. The aliens were the bad guys, and we needed to survive, and that was the overall message. That was the only message I got out of it.
Yeah, and it was great. It felt good. It wasn't forced. Loved the movie. So many strong female characters that were good. You don't need to do all this stuff. But to me, at this point, it's going to be hard to find young people who are going to write stories independently. That's why I think what Charlie Kirk is doing with TPUSA is so important. He's getting together young people who and making it okay for you to not buy into this ideology, because otherwise most of the people coming out of college are going to be in this realm, and they're going to be the journalists, they're going to be the writers, they're going to be the politicians, they're going to be wait for it, they're going to be the Supreme Court justices. I mean, down the road.
It's really frustrating because when you look at it, all the gender and race swapping, to be honest with you, I can't stand either one of it. And again, I get called racist all the time that I talk about this stuff on the stuff out there. It has literally nothing to do with race. It has to do with source material, right? Like Eric July, canon's sake, right? If the character started out a specific gender or a specific, he should stay that way, because you don't just magically change those things, no matter how delusional you are, right? Here's a good example: Spawn in the 1990s. You remember that movie?
Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
Spawn. I have all the first comic books of Spawn from Image Comics, right? I have actually, I think the first two signed by Todd McFarlane, and black character. The focus of the family on Al Simmons was Al Simmons is black, his wife is black, his best friend is black, and so on and so forth, and he was done dirty. Why in the movie did they make his best friend white? I didn't like that. That didn't make sense to me. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So for them to do that, it frustrates me, and especially when it comes to men. And it seems like they're doing it with Mighty Thor. Now we have Jane Foster as Mighty Thor, and she has Mjolnir now, right? And you got the ancient one from Doctor Strange, who used to be a man. And you've got all these examples of them switching these things, and it's just so infuriating.
Yeah, they misrepresent our position. I think they purposely misrepresent our position, and you said may call you racist or misogynistic or bigoted or whatever. Yeah. The take is you can bring in different. Eric July's main character is a black guy. You can bring it in. Just make a new character.
They don't want to. They don't want to because they know it'll fail.
Yes, I know. But yeah, I know it will fail. And then I think a part of it too is to take down in this religion, this cult of critical race theory, white males are the top of the totem pole. So you have to take down Superman, you've got to take down Bruce Wayne, you've got to take down every white, and then once you're done with the white males, you got to take down the white females. And I think it's part of it. You're right. They know a new character won't work. But see, that's why Eric July was like, wait a second. I thought you said a new character wouldn't work.
Yeah.
I'm just some random dude. I got 3.5 million. Period. My first book.
And you're right, because they did that with Valkyrie. I mean, Valkyrie was white blonde, and they switched her out for, I think the actress's name is Tessa Thomas, and she's bisexual, and they have to hint at it, because that brings a lot to the story. And it's just so frustrating. That's why I've disassociated myself from all these things. If it comes on the TV, I'll watch it, but I'm not spending money, like my hard-earned cash, to buy into that. I just stopped supporting that. Now, let me ask you this question. Does the left believe in, and do they advocate for, reverse racism? You mentioned the teachers that got fired or they were getting laid off because they were white and they weren't people of color. Do you think they promote reverse racism?
Yeah, it's clearly racist. They are reverse racists, but it's different than like a classic, I don't like you because you're this. It's more of, you can be okay. So if you are a random white man or woman out there watching this, you will be fine. They won't call you racist as long as you bend the knee. So if you say you have white privilege, if you say that there is white supremacy exists, and if you say everything, if you copy everything that they state after you, you will be perfectly fine. If you don't do that, you will have troubles. You will have problems. So it's definitely racist, but it's not really about race. It's more about that, controlling it's controlling your thought, basically.
That's interesting. We have an example of, I don't know, seeing this, I think it's on TikTok, where this young lady, she comes out in preparation for Black Panther 2. Let me tell you, I was really excited. I love Black Panther. To me, he's like the Captain America of Wakanda. I've always loved Black Panther since back in the 80s when I was collecting Avengers. And when I saw him on Civil War, was it Civil? Yeah, it was Cap 3, right? Civil War. When he came out, I was like, oh man, I was so excited to see T'Challa. And the guy who plays him, I forget his name. What's the guy who plays T'Challa in that?
You're talking about
the actor.
I forget.
I forgot his name. Dude, he played him so well. It's kind of like, Tony Stark, right? Robert Downey Jr. plays Tony Stark. It's to the T. And then the Black Panther movie comes out and they start injecting all this woke stuff into it. I'm like, oh gosh, why do I have to keep beating over the head? So anyhow, here comes this lady. She comes on TikTok and she starts talking about how white people should not go to see Black Panther and should allow black people to go see it first. I think it's obviously utter discrimination, and let's replace white people with Spanish people. All right, Spanish people don't go see it. Let black people go see it. And let's reverse it. Let's say it's a Spanish superhero. Black people don't come see it. I mean, it does not fit. We're supposed to be all the same. Aren't they the ones that are touting equality and stuff like that? But then they seem so unequal.
Yeah, there was this professor who went mask off and was talked about critical theory. I'll send you the link if I can find it again. So when people go mask off, I just appreciate them so much because they tell you what's really in their heart without lying and all that stuff. So she said, what's happening right now is like we're in a big bowl, and right now certain people, we're fighting over the spoon to stir things around. And she said right now, critical race theory is about us getting control of the spoon. Basically, what she's saying is getting control of the machine that runs political, social, cultural issues. And what happens is they actually believe in trickle down. So they believe if Joe Biden is in power, then good policies will trickle down to them. So that's why, so you wonder, why would they believe in this stuff all of a sudden? Well, they feel like it gives them power. So they give people at the top power, whoever the head honcho is at the time, and then it will trickle down to, I heard Apple Apple recently said to their employees, come on back into the office. So Elon Musk was right. You're not as efficient virtually. You know what they said? They said that's racist. They said you wanting us to come back in the. They could have just made a take like we're used to being at home. It's more efficient. They didn't have to bring race into it, but they're into this religion of critical race theory, and they're like we are going to wield that power to get what we want to stay at home or whatever it is.
Absolutely. I actually posted this on Facebook the other day. There was another lady on TikTok who came out. Apparently, Drew Barrymore was dancing out in the rain, and she felt some type of way that dancing in the rain apparently by a white person is oppressive to her and to the black community. Did you see that?
I did see. I did. She's minding her own business. She's not bothering anybody. She didn't say anything about race, and then triggered by it. We've raised a group of people who think a white woman dancing in the rain is violence. No exaggeration.
It's just insane. So let me ask you this, and this is the final question that I have on this episode and segment. As a society, based on everything that we're going, all the things that you've touched on regarding critical race theory, are we in jeopardy of losing the legacy of Martin Luther King? Are we like moving away from his dream?
Oh, we are moving way away from his dream. And I think we should be assuming that we are in danger. I mean, of the utmost danger. Here's the battle to me. There's probably 5% of people who are active right now in the country, just to estimate. I have no facts, but I think it's a small percentage of people who are active and would care about anything we talked about here, whether they hate us or agree with us. So 10% total, 5% on each side. So that leaves 90% of the people who are just living their lives, playing at the park, working, watching movies, whatever, and they don't care about any of this. If you were to bring this information to them, a vast majority of them would be on our side in the fact of we have to protect our American values, the Constitution. So we're in a battle right now. If we don't win over a large portion of that 90%, that's why they have to censor us. That's why they have to make the algorithm secret. So because they're hiding our information so we don't reach the 90%. You don't hide information if you think you have the better argument. If I think that you have a trash argument, I'll help promote your argument because it's so trash. I'm not worried about it. So I think reaching that 90% and what you and Saul are doing, much respect.
Really, thank you, brother, and likewise to you. Now, here's what I find interesting with that question that I just asked you. The left, and all sides, right? We love MLK, right? We honor his legacy, his message, and so on and so forth. But I find it really hypocritical how the left, celebrates him every year, right? We celebrate his birthday, rightfully so. But I find it hypocritical how Martin Luther King was both a Christian and a conservative, and the left hates both of those two things. His message of unity, he actually got that. It was inspired by the scriptures. There's actually a scripture, and I don't understand how the Bible was used to promote racism, right? It's beyond my knowledge. Anybody who actually reads through it, and there's a verse that says, now there is no difference in Christ. There is no difference between man and woman, rich or poor, or rich or slave, or Greek and Jew. And I think I mixed up the chronological order. It's basically saying there's no difference. We're all the same. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you're of equal value. It doesn't matter if you're free or slave, you're of equal value. And it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, you're of equal value. That's the message that basically MLK took and made his movement and made his dream come true. And they're just so against those values and those principles, and they don't even see it themselves.
His birthday is getting awkward.
I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that response.
No, it's getting awkward. It's the last one was in January 19th or whatever. It was awkward. And what I mean by that is, you're seeing the left. I think you're seeing them backpedal, like that meme of Homer Simpson going back in the grass. They're backpedaling from him. I've seen a lot of people, when I quote MLK, a lot of people calling him right wing, or only right wingers use him. MLK was for reparations. He was for universal basic income. Obviously, he's not any right winger, but now you're seeing people really use him as like, oh, you're quoting MLK now. And when they quote MLK, they do it out of context. Like when they said riot is the language of the unheard. Yes, he said that, but he didn't say it in a way to condone. Obviously, MLK didn't condone violence. So they use it, a correct quote, but then use it to apply to justify violence when he said it's the language of the unheard, so maybe we should listen.
Correct. And it's very true. And they do likewise with his niece. His niece is, I mean, she came out so many times in defense of Donald Trump and saying, you know, Donald Trump is not a racist. I've known him for quite some time. Here it is, the niece of MLK, and nobody cares. Nobody listens to her. You know, she's pro-life. She even came out and said that her without putting terms, like there was no I guess terminology, but she said that if my uncle were alive today, or knowing how he was, he would be he would be for life, right? She didn't want to say pro-life, but she said that he was for life. And so again, these values and these principles, I don't know if it's ignorance, I don't know if it's just willful denial, and just I really at this juncture I don't know. But I thought that going back to wrap up this entire segment, I thought we were living out his dream from the 70s, 80s, and 90s that you and I both grew up in.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people with good hearts. I saw a lot of people fall victim to, in my opinion, the Black Lives Matter movement, who have very good hearts, and they just want to do what's right. And they're getting, in my opinion, manipulated. And that's a lot of what you see. Most of the people who believe in this stuff, they at least started out as good-hearted people, in my opinion.
Can I share something with you?
Sure.
From the very beginning, I knew BLM was a sham. First of all, BLM started in 2014 when Barack Obama was still president. So for all those people that say that Trump, it was in response to Trump's white supremacy, it's garbage. It's baloney. Number two, I knew it was a political movement because of what they were standing and they were representing. One of the things is that they said that the reason that they started their group was because of oppression. Listen, I don't know what oppression they're talking about, because, and it's a slap in the face to me, because I have family in Cuba that are actually being oppressed. My wife has family in Venezuela that are actually being oppressed. They're actually going through oppression. And so when this Hispanic community is literally swimming over shark-infested oceans, risking their lives going through desert and mountainous range with human traffickers and drug dealers and so on and so forth to come to this country, it's really a slap in the face to say that we're oppressed here in this country.
Yeah, without question. Yep, and you can see through. I think the rise of it obviously was for the 2020 election. It rose around Trump too, started with Obama, but I think people falling victim to it came kind of because of the pandemic too. We were locked down at the time. Many states were like you couldn't go anywhere. Like outside was even like ostracized, and people just wanted to get out. They have good hearts. They saw what happened with George Floyd, and then that's when it really kind of spiked up again. Again, manipulated.
Absolutely. Emotional warfare. I do want to talk about that at some point, but I do believe one of the left's tactics is to get an emotional reaction from people. And I noticed that when I was a teenager, because when I would see certain headlines, if it was a white officer against any other suspect, whether they were Hispanic or black, you would see race front and center. But if it were the other way around, you would never see any mention of race. It was always officer and suspect and so on and so forth. So they were very crafty. Why? Because in order to get the ratings, they got to trigger your emotion. And the minute you inject racism in there, it triggers people. It's like, oh, now what happens next? I want justice. I want to see this person burn, and so on and so forth. So it's a lot of emotional warfare that these people use as a tactic to get us.
Yep, you see it because I think leftists tend to be, just generally speaking, more emotional. and so they can easily rile up their base by making Trump an enemy, or this video came out. It's a lot easier for them to do that. On the right, conservatives, libertarians, you don't just move them as easy with a video like that, or like emotions in that way.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Osiris, man, I just want to thank you so much for, number one, inviting us onto your show, coming on to our show, and talking this out with me. For our audience, it's Stuck in the Middle, right? Our good friend Osiris, check him out. He's got a ton. Dude, you post like 3 videos a day. How do you do it?
Man, it would take me hours to do a video when I first started. And then I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. And when he started out the first Teslas, they were almost handmade. But he said, I gotta get to the point where I can manufacture in mass, but not lose quality. So I kind of streamlined everything. And now I do my videos through StreamYard. I'll either just do them live, mistakes and all, or I'll record them and edit them like you do. But I just streamlined my process. I don't take as much long, with editing and all that, and try to pump them out. But I can't lose too much quality. So that's the battle: quality versus quantity.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. I love your content. Every time I get a notification, I check it out. I listen to it. I started to comment on certain things so that I'm watching you. And so on and so forth, and support your channel. So guys, if you guys are looking for additional content, if you guys want to hear a different perspective, right? That's why he's called Stuck in the Middle, because he's in the middle. Even though I want to challenge that, I think you're more right-leaning than left-leaning in the middle.
No, you're right. I'm in the middle of the populist level. So I'm not in the middle of Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi. That's the corporate, I'm in the middle of Kim Iverson, who is a populist left, Jimmy Dore, populist left, and Steve Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
All right. That's awesome, man.
But you're right. I am more right, a little bit more right.
You do. You're sane. You're sane, and that's what we need. I mean, you could be right, you could be middle, you could be left, but are we talking about sanity? Are you the type of person that's going to tell me, men can give birth? No, that's not true. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you pay somebody to say. That's not biologically true. So I think those things are important. And like I said, I really enjoy your content and listening to you. And I'm hoping that, whoever's watching us now shoots on over, checks out your stuff, and subscribes to your stuff as well.
Oh, thank you. I'll be cross-promoting to help you and Saul. I really believe in this project you guys are doing. It's excellent.
Thank you so much, brother. Hey, until next time we get together, man. Peace out, brother.
All right. Take care.